The last moment, the truck driver drives off the road. Now I can see the red vehicle, which is coming at me at over 80 miles an hour. No time to react, and he hits us head on. 2 bodies flying through the air like rag dolls.
We both had severely crushed left legs. Mine had to be amputated straight away. After 10 days, the leg was killing Chris. So I signed the amputation. The drunk driver asked the judge if he could come across the courtroom to speak to us. And he got tears in his eyes and he said, "Look, I can't give you your legs back. I'm so terribly sorry for what I did to you. Can you ever possibly forgive me?" So he said, "Yes, we forgave you actually a year ago in hospital."
Welcome, everybody. This is Simon Gilbo with Inspired. Inspired, if you're new to us, is all about meeting different people, different friends of mine from across the range of experience of life. And, you know, I think we've just all had enough of being relentlessly bombarded in the media by stuff that makes us anxious and depressed and cynical and apathetic. And there's so much bad news out there. And what we need is dollops of good news of overcoming faith. And I've got no doubt this week you're going to be inspired because we've got with us the wonderful Chris and Denise Arthey. Welcome, folks.
Yeah, hello. Good to be here.
It's wonderful to have you guys. So we were, just a couple of months ago, we were together at Clive and Anne Mather's fantastic, extraordinary 50th wedding anniversary celebration. And that was a superb night. I don't know much about your backgrounds at all. I just want to get straight into it. Basically, folks, life can change in an instant. And we're going to hear that. And yes, I don't think I need to say anything else because there's so much I want to get into now. So let's just go back. Paint a brief picture, if you like, of both of you and your faith journeys.
Okay, well, I was brought up in a Christian home, Christian grandparents as well, all attending the same church. It was amazing. Yeah, I made my decision very early on, probably about 11, to follow Jesus myself. And we actually met later on, both as Christians at university.
Yeah, my background was very similar, a Christian family, Baptist like Denise, and it was through Baptists at the university that we met.
So you end up in doing very well, weren't you, in your career, and that took you to America. So you're living the dream in a sense. Happy families, healthy bodies, and yeah, tell us about Highway 35.
Yes, well, as you say, we both had professional careers. Denise was in education, and I was an engineer and project manager. And then in 2007, my employer offered me a 3-year work assignment based in Houston, Texas. So the youngsters were, we'd just become empty nesters. Our youngest had just gone to university. So for us, it was just this huge adventure, second honeymoon. So we moved out to the States. And then a few months after we arrived, we were exploring our new surroundings. I should probably say that I've always loved motorbikes. We have to talk about motorbikes. And owned and ridden machines of various sizes. And one of my lifelong ambitions was always to ride motorcycles across the USA. So this work assignment, this was my big chance. So, as I say, a few months after we arrived, it was the 16th of May, 2008. We were exploring our new surroundings on a motorcycle. And we were down near the Mexico border and the Rio Grande on a Harley Davidson Road King. Yeah, living the dream. And we don't remember anything about the accident, which is probably a good thing. But there was a reconstruction about a year later in a small town Texas courthouse. It was 2:30 in the afternoon on a weekday, and we were on Texas State Highway 35 in a remote rural area. It's a typical Gulf Coast road, dead straight, dead flat, a 2-laner, so 1 lane of traffic going in each direction. We were doing 55, Denise was on the pillion, and it was a 70 mile an hour speed limit. So a young driver in a Ford truck comes up behind us, and 55 is a bit slow for him, so he overtakes safely to our left. And now I'm looking at the back of a big Ford truck. Well, the truck driver notices that there's this red vehicle is now coming at him at high speed on the wrong side of the road. So he thinks, is he asleep at the wheel? Is he on the phone? Is he going to get back into his own lane? No, he's not. So at the last moment, the truck driver drives off the road. Now I can see the red vehicle, which is coming at me at over 80 miles an hour. So we've got a combined closing speed of over 135 miles an hour. Things are happening at 60 meters a second. No time to react, and he hits us head on. The next vehicle behind us was another truck. This is Texas. They see this impact, explosion of motorcycle parts, two bodies flying through the air like rag dolls. So the white truck driver lifts off to slow down and stop for the crash. The red vehicle goes back on the correct side of the road, but then comes over again and hits the white truck, almost kills the driver, and severely injures his wife. Now, at this point, I left planet Earth to go and live somewhere else for quite some time. So do you want to talk about our injuries?
Yeah, so we're both badly injured, as you can imagine. We were taken actually in his and hers helicopters to the nearest trauma hospital, which was at Corpus Christi. We both had severely crushed left legs. Mine had to be amputated straight away. We both had broken left arms and hands. We both flew through the air, but landed on our heads, so we both had concussion. But because Chris was at the front of the bike, he had the internal injuries. So he had punctured lung, broken ribs, and ruptured spleen. So Chris actually spent over 2 weeks in a medically induced coma. I got out of ICU in less than a week. But after 10 days, the leg was killing Chris. So the doctors had... I signed the amputation, and so did our eldest. And I can only say that night was just awful. I don't think I slept.
Yeah.
I was just, worrying, praying, worrying. I know you're not meant to do that, but I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Would Chris make it through the operation? He was so weak. And if he did make it, would he agree with the decision we'd actually taken for him? But the amputation marked the start of his recovery.
Yeah.
It was quite unlikely that you were both going to make it, wasn't it? Do you consider that miraculous in a sense?
Yes, yeah. They were saying in the evening that the motorcyclist may not make it, and the fact that we did make it was, pretty pretty miraculous. We had an email a few months after the accident from one of the state troopers who'd attended the scene. And he was an experienced police officer. He'd seen a lot of road traffic accidents, a lot of injuries, some fatalities. And he wrote in his email that he'd seen the extent of our injuries. And then later on, he heard that we'd survived. And he wrote, it's a miracle. I can hardly believe it. And I think in our case, a large part of the miracle was the speed of the first responders. I said that it was a remote rural area. There was an emergency call. Police arrived within 15 minutes, and they joined volunteer fire crew who were already working at the scene. 2 ambulances were scrambled from the nearest town hospital. And although it was remote, they arrived fully crewed with paramedics in less than 25 minutes. And in less than an hour, we were on these 2 life flight helicopters to Corpus Christi, which happened to be only 60 miles away, which is not that far by helicopter. And also, it's one of the best trauma hospitals in the southern US. First responders often talk about the golden hour. If things go well in the first 60 minutes after an incident, then chances of survival and recovery are dramatically different. And in our case, the golden hour ran on rails. So, it was a miracle. Miracles still happen. Watch out for them.
I think when we look back, there are so many other things that were in place.
Yeah.
The actual crash site, it was on grass. We'd passed junctions, we'd passed metal poles with signs on, parapets,
crash barriers, all sorts.
Everything. Yeah. But we actually landed on grass, and a wide sort of 20-metre swathe of grass. The other thing we learnt later when we actually got in touch with our paramedics and met the helicopter crews and the ambulances, we hadn't realised, but 2 weeks before our accident, the helicopters were actually suddenly allowed to have broad spectrum antibiotics. They're allowed to carry them. And of course, they pumped us full of fluid, but these antibiotics as well. And one of the medics said, without that, with all the Texas mud that was in your system, you wouldn't have survived. And there was one strange one. We did learn from someone that there was apparently a nurse who was the first person on the scene who provided immediate first aid.
One of the cars that stopped had a qualified nurse on board.
And we've contacted everyone we could. Yeah. We've never found that nurse. And then somebody at church said, I think it was an angel.
Oh. Well, you talk about your church, and you'd only been in the States a few months, so you can only have had such a certain level of depth of relationship, but they absolutely rallied around you, didn't they?
They were amazing. I mean, we had carloads of the US church travelling down to Corpus Christi to visit us, as soon as the news broke. The UK church were also amazing. I mean, they supported our youngsters. They organised their flights and drove them to the airport. Perhaps the most surprising one, we've been in our new house 5 months and the neighbours dropped everything, picked up our 3 at Houston Airport and drove them to Corpus Christi. That's a 4-hour drive. The pastor came every week. He made 4 trips, didn't he, in all?
Yeah.
Chris's employer were amazing. I mean, they cleared quickly for our 3 to fly out to the States. But they organised and paid for hotel, hire car, mobile phone, even gave them spending money and just said, you just stay until your parents are out of danger. It's utterly amazing. The funny one was that it sort of drew our neighbourhood together. So the neighbours, the friends and the church, they put up this amazing rota. So we had a hot meal every night when we were home.
Help the Artheys rota.
Yeah. And transport to and from doctor's appointments, hospital appointments. There was even a rota for housework. Yay. But we did have to change the meal rota. This was Texas. The meals were utterly enormous. I've been walking with my next door neighbour every evening, and her best friend happened to be an ex-nurse. And she said, don't worry, I'll come and stay with you. Well, she stayed for 2 weeks until Chris also got out of hospital. And then there was a gentleman in the church, and he was a building contractor. He said, just don't worry, I'll do all the modifications you need to the house. So he built a wheelchair ramp up to the front door. He widened the family bathroom doorway, put up support rails. Church paid for all the materials, and Doug offered his labour free of charge. That's just incredible.
So good. So good. Yeah, so the guy who crashed into you, he wasn't asleep at the wheel. He wasn't texting. He was 3 times, wasn't he, over the limit. He had the amount of alcohol in that most of us sort of would be passed out. And that comes out with a court case. Just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, they have the same drink drive limit in Texas as they do currently in England, which is 80 milligrams of alcohol per 100 millilitres of blood. So the limit is 80. And as you say, he was over 3 times. He was at 250, which is the equivalent of 2.5 to 3 bottles of wine, or in his case, over half a litre of whiskey at 2:30 in the afternoon on a weekday. And for further context, the limit is 80. He was at 250. 350 is the equivalent of a general anaesthetic in hospital.
All right.
So, I couldn't even find a car with let alone drive it.
So it goes to court, and I mean, in your book, it's very interesting and dramatic as you sort of recount all the details. But he essentially gets off with a suspended 10-year sentence, which is, I'm guessing, quite hard. So just talk us through the whole sort of forgiveness, potential struggles with bitterness, your life so utterly transformed, whereas his not so much.
Well, it was interesting because for quite a long while when we were in hospital, we didn't actually know. We thought it was a drunk driver, but we weren't quite sure until the police report came out. And first of all, that was a huge weight off your mind, wasn't it? Knowing that you didn't actually cause the accident. Yeah,
I'd been lying awake at night, sort of knowing the extent of our injuries, but not knowing anything about the accident. So I was thinking, was it me riding recklessly? And why would I do that with Denise on the pillion? So I was going through all these tortuous cartwheels. And when the police report actually came out and it said 250 milligrams and 4 counts of intoxication assault, although it was, in one sense, it was horrible. For me, it was just this huge relief to find out that, well, actually, I probably couldn't have done anything. Well, I did all I could to avoid him, and it wasn't enough.
Sure.
Yeah, and in after the court case, which was a year after the accident, the drunk driver asked the judge if he could come across the courtroom to speak to us. And he got tears in his eyes and he said, "Look, I can't give you your legs back. I'm so terribly sorry for what I did to you. Can you ever possibly forgive me?" Now, surprisingly, we never felt any bitterness towards him. And that helped us put all our energy into recovering. We did not want to go down the dark, angry, bitter route because we knew, well, that was going to harm ourselves. So he said, "Yes, we forgave you actually a year ago in hospital," which was a shock to him, wasn't it?
Yeah, we have to be careful about this because, people know that we've got a faith background. We're Christians. We know the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. So they think, oh, they're probably really good Christians and they were able to forgive. But it wasn't like that at all. We sort of expected to feel angry and bitter, and there was honestly nothing there. So it was like a gift that dropped from heaven. So it enabled us to just to put that to one side and get on with all the other stuff that we had to do.
Yeah, and I think putting myself in his shoes in hospital, I was just thinking, gosh, if I'd done that, I would find it really hard to forgive myself, But then the Lord said something which was amazing. He just said, "Well, I know you've forgiven him. I really do know you've done that. But now pray blessing." And that was a real shock. That was a sort of a what?
Yeah.
And as we started to pray blessing, that's when the real release came. And quite honestly, we've never really understood the power of forgiveness before. We have in our own lives, obviously, for ourselves, but we hadn't really grasped it. I mean, he went to prison for 4 months, didn't he?
Yeah.
First of all.
The judge had flexibility to add a short custodial sentence. So it was 4 months in the county jail, not the state penitentiary.
Yeah. And Chris actually, in the court, you were allowed to do a victim statement. So Chris did actually, which is in the book, Chris did actually say that, we're praying for him to, have a successful life again, sort of thing, put his life back together again. But anyway, we decided, we've forgiven him, but we need to do something. So we visited him when he was in the county jail. We exchanged emails every 6 months, and we still do. At the end of 2012, Chris's assignment was finishing, so we were leaving the States, and he asked to see us again. So we had lunch with him and his wife, and we were able to reassure him, look, as far as we're concerned, you're forgiven, but you need to find forgiveness for yourself. 2019, because he had this 10-year, as you said, of probation, and he wrote us an amazing email thanking us for our kindness and our support, because he said it really helped him cope emotionally over the years. We've been back to Texas twice since then and had a meal with him and his wife each time. And at the end of one meal, he surprised us. He said, "Well, when you're next in Texas, please come and stay with us at our house."
Wow.
And so we really are discovering the remarkable power of forgiveness.
Yeah. That's very powerful. I think sometimes with small things that need forgiven, we can do it in our own strength. But I think Romans 5:5 comes to mind. For God pours out his love into our hearts by the Holy Spirit whom he's given us. And I think sometimes it has to be supernatural. From my context in Central Africa, genocidal stories of, you think, how can you possibly forgive? When I think of my friend Edith, whose husband and 3 of her kids were hacked to death, and I've cried and prayed with her at the graveside of those. But, she still had 3 kids alive. And so she tried to get through to relative safety in the Congo, but came to a roadblock. She was from the wrong ethnic group. She was stripped. They were going to rape her first. And they found, she said to the guys about to rape her and kill her, "I'm not afraid to die because as soon as you kill me, I'll be with Jesus." But he said, no, God is dead. And I think in that circumstance, you could easily think that God was dead. But as you stripped her to rape her, she said, "Well, Lord, if you're dead, I don't want to die, so show me that you're alive." And he found all her money stashed in her bra. So he took the money and legged it, and so she was free. She got her clothes back on, got through safety. A few months later, back in the safety, if you like, post-war, she heard that man was in prison, and she got permission to go and see him, and she said to him, face to face, well, he had his head to the ground. He was so ashamed. She said, you told me God's dead. I'm here to tell you it's a lie, that he loves you, that he cares for you, he forgives you. And he's told me to do the same. So I love you. I care for you. I forgive you. And from then on, she visited him in prison, took him food, and without someone taking you food, you would rot it in there. It was a prison built for 1,000 men that had 7,000 in it post genocide. So, I've got lots of those stories, but forgiveness, as you have exhibited, if it's genuine, it's costly, but it's also liberating, isn't it? It's that quote, forgiving someone is setting the prisoner free and discovering that you were their prisoner, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the one that we like is if you don't forgive someone, it's like eating rat poison and expecting the rats to die. It doesn't work like that. Now, sometimes we've been asked, well, would you have been able to forgive him if he hadn't been remorseful? And the honest answer to that is, well, we don't know, because we weren't asked to face that. All we can do is to describe how it appeared to us. And he was remorseful, and we didn't have any bitterness. And we're just really grateful about that.
Now, you process your experiences differently, and Denise, your physical recovery was faster, wasn't it? And Chris, you spent longer in a coma, and then you wake up and your leg's gone, and you've got all these questions. I'm guessing, why me? Why us? To talk us through those battles.
Yeah, the why me question. I certainly did the cartwheels over that one, because I used to think I was a careful motorcyclist. And I'd never crashed a machine before in my life. I've been on safe rider training with the British Motorcycle Police. Never had a speeding ticket in my life, either on a bike or in a car. I did get a parking ticket once, but it was a number of years ago. We were on our honeymoon. I think I must have been distracted. But so, sort of competent and careful. It was a well-planned trip. We had the right gear on, motorcycle helmets, eye shields, leather jackets, gloves, stout footwear. We weren't in a hurry, 55 in a 70 limit. We had a route plan. We knew where we were going, taking plenty of breaks. And why would this happen on the very rare occasion when I've got my precious wife on the pillion? So it's the big question, the why me. So I have this list. It's the list of things that Chris does not understand. And this why me, why us question is pretty much at the top of the list. And when it's my turn to go to the pearly gates, I'm taking that list with me because I want some answers. But I have a feeling that when I get there, I'll toss the list away because then it won't matter anymore. And we know the scripture, was it 1 Corinthians 13:12? Now we see but a poor reflection, then we shall see face to face. Now I understand only in part, then I will know fully, even as I'm fully known. So I'm quite content to believe that at some point this will all make perfect sense, but it isn't yet. So as it isn't yet, the list is really useful because it's a reminder that sometimes we just have to be okay with not understanding everything. And that's where we are.
That's right. So, I mean, I'm guessing a whole lot of people will be listening right now. And can you give a bit more on that, on how you deal with it? I mean, Jesus enters into our suffering. He comes alongside. He comforts us. We don't get the necessarily. I like the French, which is for why is pourquoi, which means what for. At some level, you've had a lot of what fors that have come out of it, hasn't it? You've had incredible chances to minister and share your story, and you've brought so many encouragements to so many people. Can you talk more into that?
Yeah, I think going back to the faith that you started on, I think if you'd asked us beforehand what, I would have said that I don't think my faith would have held up, or Chris's. The only thing I can say is, everything that we'd believed just happened. I can remember coming round in hospital and just so aware of God's presence in the room. It was like everything had been stripped away. The Lord remained just as he promised. He never let us go. You were mentioning about, sort of almost finding Jesus alongside in your suffering. And I can remember one afternoon, Chris came up in his wheelchair to the top floor where I was. And, he got tears streaming down his eyes. And he looked down at his body and waved his good arm over it. And he said, this reminds me that Jesus' body was broken for us. And suddenly, we realized it was not just the presence of Jesus with us. It was the fact that because he had suffered and far worse than us, he knew, he understood the pain, the humiliation, the injustice we were feeling. And, that was just so comforting. I mean, it was like meeting the suffering Jesus. And it was like, I had an earlier episode in the hospital when, just looking down at my stump and just thinking, I had a beautiful body that you gave me. I sort of took it for granted. And now look at it. And it was almost like the Lord was just, pouring love down, but also his sorrow. He knew exactly how I was feeling.
Yeah.
The other thing that happened, which really surprised me, although it's biblical, was that Bible verses kept coming to mind that I didn't know I knew. I mean, obviously I grew up in church, and one I just hung on to with white knuckles. It was Romans 8:28, all things work together for good for those who love God and accord according to his purposes. And I decided to write it out very shakily, gave it to the pastor, Frankie, and I said, would you please go and read that over Chris in the coma? Would you pin it up in his room? Somehow I just wanted that promise of God declared over Chris. Did things look good? They looked absolutely terrible at the time. But, all things have worked together for good. And I think suddenly it was just that realization that, what I built my life on, it was true. It was really true. Not just the presence of God, but, his word. It was incredible. And all the Christians that we met in hospital, it was just like
lots.
An English physio suddenly arrived very early on. And, she was a strong Christian. She was just absolutely lovely. I understood her because she was English. I understood all that she said. And she was saying afterwards, she said, this is really weird because she said, I look at my usual timetable and I float into hospital, spend a few days with the patient and then float out again. She was with us the entire time. And she said, she said, as soon as you left, I went back to that old shifting between hospitals routine. The chaplain used to keep visiting us. She was amazing. And the power of prayer. I mean, we knew people in the UK and the US were praying for us. I can only tell you it was tangible. It was like, it really for me, because Chris was obviously in the coma at the beginning, it was like being lifted and carried above the circumstances.
Yes.
It was utterly incredible. It was so powerful.
Hey folks, I think many of you know that I am actually British, but also Burundian. I spent 20 years in Burundi, started a charity called Great Lakes Outreach. This podcast comes out under the auspices of Great Lakes Outreach. We're currently the hungriest country in the world. That's according to the Global Hunger Index, alongside Yemen. And many people just eat one meal a day. Over half of children under the age of 5 are stunted by malnutrition. So that's basically 1 in 2 kids. Mind-blowing. So can you imagine the potential if we could grow enough food for everybody to eat properly? And I want you to imagine 2 fields side by side. They both got the same soil, same weather, but one has spindly shoulder-height crops, so the other's got row upon row towering way above your head. It produces 7 times more food than the other crop. Well, is it possible? I've seen it for myself. It's called Foundations for Farming. It used to be called Farming God's Way. And it's basically a biblically inspired method which yields massive amounts of food from a small piece of land. It's already changing lots of lives in Burundi where hunger is clearly a gigantic issue. Anyway, we've just released a stunning new film about it, and it's less than 2 minutes long. It explains how it works and how you could get involved. Many of you are giving 10, 20, whatever pounds or dollars a month already money. This is the sort of thing the money goes to. So if you want to be involved, go to greatlakesoutreach.org/farming to see this gorgeous short film. And you could also find it on the YouTube channel. And if you want to get involved, I would love that. greatlakesoutreach.org/farming. Here's to changing the world. Now let's get back to the podcast. And you, I'm just trying to remember, you had all these cards, didn't you, sent across because you'd been involved in a primary school back in the UK, and you got some lovely messages. Well, there was one particular one that was very powerful, wasn't there?
Yeah, from the actual kindergarten class in America.
Well, there were probably two cards that meant a lot.
Well, one letter was funny. I'll go to that one first, but then I know the one you're talking about.
Right.
I had lots of letters from the UK children because they remembered me, you know. And one little girl wrote, "Dear Mrs. Arthey, I was so sad to hear about your bad crash. I hope you don't have another one." Which was, you know, typical child.
Yeah. Encouragement,
yes. And I was amazed that my friend, the teacher, had actually let that one come through because it was lovely. I did actually laugh in hospital, probably for the first time.
Yeah, out loud.
But the one that still makes me shiver today is the one you're thinking about. Is yes, the kindergarten class. They're a year younger. They made me beautiful cards. They put stickers on patterns, and they obviously had copied from the board, "Get better soon, we miss you." But one little girl, quite independently, and I still remember the little girl as well, she wrote, "Do you see a rainbow?" And on the back, she drew this beautiful rainbow. I mean, how do children always get to the heart of the matter? You know, it was like God's promise, you know, here you are, Denise, through that child you know, here's a picture of a rainbow, you know, my promise that all will be well. So encouraging.
Beautiful. Yeah. Chris, you talk about your struggles with identity. I mean, lots of us struggle with our identity. So talk more into that.
Yes, in some ways, this identity crisis was harder to bear than the physical injuries in some ways. But I talked earlier about being careful and competent. My self-image was of somebody who was fairly adventurous, but, you know, well in control. Well, I'd blown that totally with this catastrophic accident with Denise on the pillion. I was a marathon runner before the accident, and competed in a number of international marathons, just loved training and racing. So when I was fully conscious again, one leg, so that's probably the end of that. And in my work, I was surrounded by extremely capable engineers and project managers. And I used to think that, you know, on a good day, I was holding my own with these very talented people. But when they brought me out of the coma, I couldn't read a clock. I couldn't use a phone. In therapy, I was being defeated by simple children's puzzles. And so I could barely feed myself. I was dribbling food. And it felt as if all the things that I had felt defined me, and the things I took pride in, had been taken away, which leaves the question, well, who am I now? And who am I, and what am I for? And for me, the turning point was telling myself that my value as a human being doesn't come from what I can achieve, but it comes from who I am. And even if you take all these achievement-based things away, I'm still a child of God. I'm still known. I'm still loved. I still have significance. And hanging on to that helped me to turn the corner and start to build a life again. But we often get distracted by our own view of who we are, and it's not what you can achieve, it's who you are, and that doesn't change.
And at the same time, you've got so back in the saddle, as it were, in terms of, even despite that your amputation was above the knee, which made it much harder. But go on, tell us about the amazing journey with incredible world-class prosthetics, how you've been able, and what you've been able to achieve. It's been stunning.
Yeah, just a mention on the amputation. If you lose a leg below the knee, it takes like 15 to 25% more effort to walk, to get around. If you're above the knee amputation, it's like 65 to 75%. So if you lose that knee function, it's a lot more. We had no idea. And you lost a leg. Okay. You've lost a leg above the knee. Okay. You know, oh yeah, that's really bad. So, and yeah, we're both above the knee amputees. Denise's amputation is a bit higher than mine, which makes it even more difficult. Yeah. So, I think it was the November. Yeah. The accident was in the May, and in the November, we were just getting mobile on our first prosthetic legs. And we had a council of war with a very good friend of ours from the church, just to address this question. Well, what does life hold for us now? What will become of us? And we determined that what we really wanted, to the extent possible, was to get back to the things that we loved and were doing before the accident. So in Denise's case, that was getting back in a classroom, playing the piano again, despite the smashed left arm and hand, and enjoying your gardening.
Yep.
Yeah. And for me, it was getting back into engineering and project management, because I really enjoyed my career. Yeah. And the endurance sports. And our friend prayed with us, and we said, look, we are prepared to pay the price, do what it takes, and if we possibly can, we want those things back again. And as far as the endurance sports is concerned, it's almost as if the Lord said to me, Chris, I know running was important to you, and because I love you, I'm going to give you the running back again. It won't be the same, and it isn't quite the same. But he did. And yeah, so a year and a half after the crash, I took delivery of my first running leg, which has got one of these Blade Runner carbon fiber feet, a spring. And it was extremely uncomfortable and difficult, but I got running again. So with the Blade, I've done 2 full marathons. As far as we know, I was the first above the knee amputee to complete London Marathon. And then I got a cycling leg, that one's very different. It's got a freewheeling hinge for a knee and a shoe that clips on the left pedal. So basically the chap on the left is getting a free ride, while the chap on the right does all the hard work. Yeah. So I learned to cycle again. I learned to swim again. I found quite quickly I can swim breaststroke, but every time I kick, I turn left. So I stick to freestyle, because then I can swim in a straight line. So with the swimming, the cycling and the running, I do triathlons, which is something I didn't do before the accident. So I've done, 30 or so triathlons up to half Ironman, which was a crazy idea. That's 1.2 mile open water swim, 56 miles on the bike, and then a 13.1 mile half marathon.
Yeah.
And I compete in the British Para Triathlon Championships.
Fantastic.
So last year, and so last summer in the championships, I took gold medal. So national champion at the age of 70. But because Denise is here, full disclosure, I got gold last year because I was the only one in the category who showed up.
Brilliant.
There aren't many above the knee amputees who want to do triathlons.
Yeah.
And when I'm training and racing now, most of the time I'm not thinking about being an amputee. It's just, heart rate, the clock, can I catch the competitor in front? And I still love training and racing. I know I won't be able to do it forever, but while I can, I'm just going to continue enjoying it. And the Lord knew that, and he was very good to me.
You've also got a trekking leg.
Yes, yeah, I've got it's a sort of heavier weight blade with a heel unit on it. So I've climbed Kilimanjaro and I've trekked to Everest Base Camp, and both of those were just amazing adventures which shouldn't be possible. Just very thankful.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember reading sort of coming down's even harder, isn't it? It's like 18-hour days with your Sherpa.
Yes.
Sort of, absolutely extraordinary. Oh,
Yes.
so wonderful. Go on, get sort of life lessons through that.
I think it's setting goals. You know,
Yeah.
we set goals, which our friend helped us do. And I think somebody else in the church, when we were quite low, he said to us, do you know what? He said, what you've got to find is the new normal. You know, you're looking at, because that was early days, and we were looking at, we won't be able to do this, we won't be able to do that. And he said, no, you will, but it'll just be different. You know, so find the new normal. So for me, I still go into a classroom, and as a volunteer now, and I hear readers, which I love. I mean, I do struggle to get down to the low chairs, but I can do it. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things. I mean, I sing in a choir, which involves a lot of standing and sitting and, you know, getting up at the right time, and I can do that. And it's just amazing. I mean, we did find at the beginning, it's like you've aged 20 years. Everything is really slow and quite difficult. But you just have to adapt. And I think some question we always get asked, sorry, I will get back to your question, but sometimes, you know, people say, well, there was two of you. Does that help or does it hinder? Well, it only hindered at the beginning. I mean, then it was tremendous help because it was the two of us against a common enemy, really, which was the disability. And, and you know, so we could share our frustrations, and we only had one day when we were low together. But it's been amazing, hasn't it? Because, I mean, for me, I've got this adventurous person. I'm not adventurous. But, you know, how do you get into a shower with one leg? So, you know, Chris, the guinea pig, has a go, and then he gives me a tutorial. So from my point of view, it's really good, because I would never have even attempted to get in a shower on my own. So...
yeah, a couple of other things there is that we're quite competitive.
Highly competitive. I won't like quite.
So I think to an extent, with the matching injuries, we sort of competed with each other. And also we have a good sense of humour, and we had a lot of laughs on the way through, figuring out ways things do not work. But so back on the sports briefly, I think because we both have a sports background, I mean, we're both used to training towards things. And even though the training is sometimes hard work, it hurts, we had this knowledge that if you work towards something diligently, it will pay off. So with the competitiveness with each other and the sports background, knowing we're training towards a goal, I think those things helped us to get back a lot more than we otherwise would have done.
Yeah.
We had a lot of encouragement from our three youngsters as well. I mean, they never, ever treated us and still don't treat us as disabled. I mean, right from the beginning. And that was wonderful. And they said, you know what, you never changed because you weren't bitter, because you forgave, you never changed. And of course, we've now got grandchildren. And okay, it's a bit frustrating sometimes. I mean, we're not very good at frisbee now, because if you leap up for the frisbee, you're not quite sure how you're going to land. And it's quite hard with the little ones, you know, pick him up and walk around with him, or we can get down on the floor, but you don't feel quite as free as you would have done. But hey ho, we're here. I mean, we might not have been here, and we are just honestly, we are grateful. It's like a gift every day, because you know, in many ways we shouldn't be here.
Yeah, just after the accident, when we got out of hospital, we celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. So this summer we'll be celebrating our 48th anniversary. So that's 18 years that we almost never had. So we're really thankful.
So good. Hey folks, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. If you want to join our WhatsApp group, it's just one ping a week, but it's an easy way of forwarding on to other people. The details will be in the blurb and the show notes below. One thing I'd love to offer you is that my publishers have let me put on our daily devotional Choose Life online. So tens of thousands of people have enjoyed the book, but over the last few years we've had it online for free, and that could be a daily email or a weekly email. So for that, just go to chooselife.org.uk. Now, let's get back to the podcast. At the end of your book, Highway 35, here I've got it. I love how you close out, and I'll read out just a couple of paragraphs. So you're working with a Norwegian network providing peer support for amputees. The Norwegian word for this type of peer is like person, pronounced lik person, which for us speaks volumes. It's a person who is like you, on the same journey and able to relate closely to you and your disability, someone with the credibility that only shared experience, shared suffering can bring. We're very thankful, in fact astonished, that we both survived Highway 35. It's a strange benefit that we have matching injuries. We are both married to and are best friends with our likperson. I've often reflected that if Denise had lost her leg and I hadn't, I'm not sure I would have had the sympathy and compassion to be the husband I need to be. I know that if I'd lost my leg and she hadn't, I would have got the poor old me's and been insufferable. But because we live life with our like person, it's the two of us against the common enemies of disability, frustration, and sometimes despair. And then this paragraph, I love it. Our faith teaches us that in a cosmic mystery, our God has become our like person. He took on human form with all its frustrations and disabilities and lived an innocent life. He knows what it's like, and worse. His friends deserted him and he was tortured and murdered, yet he lives. Through our darkest times, we both turned to him for comfort and found strength beyond ourselves, beyond both of us, and we still do. Highway 35 happened for reasons that we still don't understand, but we do see the rainbow that the little girl put in her card. And for us, every life is a gift. That is so beautiful and powerful. So, how would you like to close us out in terms of words of encouragement to minister to? A lot of people are going through a really tough time, aren't they? Life is full of sucker punches, different from yours, less visible maybe, but people are carrying wounds, they've got scars. How can you encourage them?
Oh, John 16, verse 33. Jesus himself said, in this world, you will have trouble. He didn't say you might have trouble. He said you will have trouble. So if you're not having trouble right now, give it a moment, you will have trouble. But then, of course, he goes on to say, but take heart, I've overcome the world. You know, they say that on a scale of 1 to 10, today's difficulties are always a 10. So how difficult is it, the two of us living life with one leg each? On a scale of 1 to 10, that's a 10. But if we went round your listeners, there'd be people listening in right now who have got physical conditions, mental conditions, depression, worries about relationships, finances, grief, addiction. So on a scale of 1 to 10, that's a 10 for you today. It's not the same 10, it's different, but it's still a 10. And one thing we often say is that because of that, in a way, we're all disabled. We're not all disabled in the same way, but we're all disabled. So be kind to each other. And then back to that verse, and Jesus himself said, but take heart, I've overcome the world.
Yeah.
We talk about prison. We've done some prison visits. And Chris came up with something when somebody asked him the question about, how do you cope with all this?
Yeah, I think there is this risk. We've done a fair bit of work on restorative justice programs in prisons. And when we go in and talk to prisoners, there's a risk that they look at us and think, well, okay, they've only got one leg each. But they've got each other. They're obviously articulate, probably fairly well educated, probably comfortably off. So they're not like us. So we've said to prisoners, look, it wasn't in our life plan to be the age of 70 with one leg each. Nothing like that. That wasn't in our plan. Probably wasn't in your life plan to be your age sitting in this prison. And suddenly we're all on the same side of the fence. Stuff happens. Bad choices, bad influences, tragedies, stuff happens. But the important question is, okay, but what happens next? And we've decided that we want to make the best of what happens next with the help that we've got. And it's the same for anybody who's having a tough time. Yeah, bad things happen, but what happens next? And that's when Jesus says, take heart, I've overcome the world.
I think also, God puts us in community, and obviously we sort of entered the prosthetic world as well. But, something that we found so helpful was meeting with other people who were further along the journey, other amputees who were doing well. And that is so encouraging. And just quiz them, how did you do this? I mean, you've read the book, but my grandfather was an amputee. So I actually grew up with an amputee, which is amazing because he he lost his leg in World War I. And he lived a normal life. I mean, very productive. He didn't drive, but he did everything else, and he was fun and he enjoyed life. And we met a couple of people in hospital, who were living a good life, incredibly happy people who could speak into our lives. And that was brilliant.
Yeah, well, one of them in the rehab hospital, he was actually recovering from back surgery, but he was an above the knee amputee. And he said to us, yes, I've seen you doing your therapy. You're really committed. You're diligent. He said, you're young and you're fit. He said, a year or two's time, you'll be fine. You'll put your leg on first thing in the morning. You'll get on with your life. You won't think about it. You'll take the leg off last thing at night. He said, you'll be fine. And we hung on to those words because that is what we needed to hear.
Yeah. And I think also it's really important when you're going through something like that to look at how far you've come. I mean, take it each day at a time. We would look back and say, well, a week ago, we couldn't do that. We couldn't, say, stand up on one leg, or we couldn't get out of the wheelchair and move around, with a frame.
Yeah.
The tendency is that you tend to look at the disaster scenario. You look ahead, don't you, about,
so far.
Oh, I've got so far to go. Will I ever get there? But, just look back. And I think one of the best things we ever heard was in the context of parenting, and it was, don't count the score at half time.
Yeah.
So powerful.
Yes. Oh, guys, you use wisdom, and I know you're sharing. You do lots of talks at different groups and minister to many, many people, and God's used you in all sorts of ways that, frankly, you wouldn't have been used if this hadn't happened to you. And that's where God redeems, doesn't he? Yeah. And I wrote a book called More Than Conquerors, and that More Than Conquerors comes from Romans 8, verse 37, which says we are more than conquerors through Christ. But verse 37 comes after verse 35, of course, which is, who shall separate us from the love of God? Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? No. In all these things, we are more than conquerors. And so we as Christians, we are victorious, we are triumphant, but we are not triumphalistic. It's not gung-ho, we got the victory. No, it comes the other side of trouble, hardship, persecution, famine, nakedness, danger, sword. And I think that sometimes, as followers of Jesus, if we settle for a shallow faith, we sort of have the bumper stickers and slogans, and God is calling us to embrace the scars and be, fully engaged in the battle. And that is definitely costly. And you've got your scars; they're very obvious to see, and they're beautiful testaments of God's work in and through you. I was just thinking as well of an ambush. I thought I'd die in ambushes in the war context I was in, and there's one guy, and he was shot through the face kind of exploded, but he survived, and his name was Henry. He was blessed to receive multiple plastic surgery, reconstructive surgery operations. And after all that, he still couldn't speak. His mouth was gone. But his eyes sparkled, and he was given a piece of paper, and he wrote this: God never promised us an easy journey, just a safe arrival.
Oh, wow.
Lovely.
And that ultimately is the truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what you're living out, guys. And I just so appreciate you you're so not into bumper stickers and slogans. You're living out your battle with the scars. Any last words?
Well, Denise mentioned very briefly earlier on that there was a day then we were both down together. So if Denise was down, I would try and encourage, and Denise certainly encouraged me when I was, but we were both down together. So what do? You phone the pastor, and Pastor Frankie dropped everything and came round and prayed and had coffee with us.
And listened.
And then he said two things. The first thing he said was, through what you're experiencing, God is building a platform, and you will be able to speak to people and they'll listen to you in a way that they wouldn't listen to anybody else because of what you've been through. It's like you say, he sort of redeems the scars.
Yeah. And
the second thing he said was that there will come a time when you won't want your legs back. And then he said, I don't know why I just said that. It was out of my mouth before. And to be honest, if you offered us our legs back today, we would say, yes, please, but probably not with the same enthusiasm that we would have said back in 2008, 2009. But the platform that we seem to have enables us to connect with lots of people. And interestingly, over half of the appearances we make are secular audiences. I mentioned prisons, but there's community groups, corporate talks,
prosthetic conferences.
Yeah. And we just find that really fascinating because we don't hide our faith. I mean, we're not ashamed of the gospel. But obviously, if you've been brought in to speak to a secular audience, you have to have wisdom about how you use the microphone. And we have had people say to us, you're not going to preach at them, are you? So, we do have to be careful. But it's amazing the feedback we get. And there's always one or two people in a secular audience who come up afterwards and say, I'm so pleased you mentioned your faith. And there are some who really are very challenged. And I think really that's what we're about. And that's why we do the talks, and that's why we wrote the book, because there'll be some who are very interested because they have a faith. There'll be some who are not interested at all because they don't want to be preached at. But there will be some who will put themselves in our position and they'll think, wow, if something like that happened to me, I think I'd like the sort of faith and the sort of support that Chris and Denise had. Yeah. And that's our assignment.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, listen, folks, here it is, Highway 35, meeting disaster head on with hope. And that could be a book that will minister to, you can think of people right now. We can all think of people that are really struggling. And this podcast, I know, is going to minister to loads of people. So pass on, gossip this podcast to people that need to be inspired. They've had some major knocks, but they can hopefully find the same hope in Christ that Chris and Denise have. So Chris and Denise Arthey, God bless you beauties, cheering you on with your upcoming marathons and all you do together. Thanks for your time.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
Wonderful. Woo, guys, brilliant, isn't it? Oh, listen, please, do share this podcast and give us a great review on Spotify or iTunes so that more people can, the algorithm brings it across people's paths. I want to thank Adam Thomas Steer for the editing, Mike Sandman for the mixing. Next week, a very different story from a very different guest, but they're all so beautiful and different, aren't they? But in the meantime, go for it. God bless you. Have a good week and toodaloo.